I just wanted to continue on from what we were learning in class. We were doing a lot of looping with a to-do app. And so far what we have is the ability to list to-dos that are in our memory. So in our script file, we've got two sample arrays and they're parallel arrays. So element 0 in array 1 corresponds to element 0 in array 2 and so on. So we have two items in there right now. And if we list our to-dos, you can see that's what comes out. I've come up with a couple of ways that we can refine this, and I think I'm going to before we continue on. But just to kind of give us a bit of a review of what else we can do, we can add something. So I've got the to test, but it doesn't update our list right away. We have to list again. So we are going to add some functionality to have our list update every time we do an action that causes a change to the list. And that is about it for the moment anyway. I want to go down to our list to-dos function. And when we list to-dos, right now all we do is we take our output text box, that's this guy right here, our output text box, and we change its value to an empty string, which means that it clears it off completely. So if we were to do that right now, output text box dot value equals nothing, you can see it just empties out that box, right? The next thing that we do is we go through a loop, and if you remember, this is initialize, then test, then increment, and we look at our done text. How do we figure out what our done text is? Well, we look at each of the to-do done array elements, which if we just look again, to-do done, we have our first list which tells us what the to-dos are, and our second list which tells us whether they're done or not, and that's to-do done. All right. So going back to our list, to-do done at each element. This is our array accessor. So when we say 0 in here, we're accessing this first element. When we say 1, we access this element. And if we go any higher, we're not going to have any elements until we start adding stuff to the end of the list. And since we have parallel arrays, when we refer to to-do list I, we're looking at the corresponding element in the other array. So what we're doing is we're just checking whether to-do done is true or false. If it's true, then we're outputting a done, so yes, we are finished. And if it's not true, we're outputting not done. And when we output it to our list, it kind of comes out in these square brackets in the end. That's because I put the square brackets in the text down here, and I started adding things together in that way. I've come up with a better way to do this just to make this text a little more clear as to what it's doing. So that's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to move this done thing to the beginning. Okay, we're going to put it before our to-do list item. Okay, and we're going to get rid of these boxes in the text here. All right, and I'm going to move my /n here. And just a reminder, the /n is just adding a new line to the to the screen. So it's like going in here and pressing enter. I have a read-only text box here right now, so I can't actually do that physically. But if I were to go into here and I press enter, that's what the new line character does. And since we can't type out a new line and have it represented by a normal character, what we use is this escape character. It's a backslash followed by a standard character, which has special meaning to JavaScript, and most programming languages will use these escape characters. So far we've got that, and I just want to show you what we have with that so far. So I'm going to hit reload and list to-dos, and you see it kind of looks nasty there. That's okay though, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this done to an X with squares around it, and I'm going to change not done to a box that has nothing inside it, just an empty space. I did put a space there though so that we can keep consistent formatting. You'll see what I'm doing with this in just a moment. And I'm going to refresh again. Okay, and I list the to-dos, and look what I've got there now, these boxes, right? And if I were to finish the do laundry item and I marked it complete and then listed it, you can see now we've got an X beside things that are complete, and that's a little more like a to-do list that we would keep at home anyway. So I thought that would be a little nicer than having the done and not done stuff. Now it looks like something you're used to, but there's no space in between this closing square and the next character, and I think I want to put a space in there. So what would I do? There's a couple of ways I could do this. I could go in here and see this is the done text, which I figured out by doing a little bit of mumbo jumbo magic here. I could go here and I can put the space afterwards. Okay, And that will work. That's perfectly fine. All right. So I list those, and you can see now I've got the space there. Gives it a little more visual space, which is good. I could have also put spaces here inside of each of these, but you see I've got to do the work twice, and programming is all about efficiency, so we only had to put one space here, which makes it a little bit more attractive of an option. Okay, so after we kind of output all that information, we're good with the list to-dos, and it looks a little nicer now, so I'm happier with it. I also want to go up to my add to-do item. Okay, now add to-dos, when we go like this, I add in a test, I press add. I should, number one, when I add it, there should be some kind of visual feedback to me that I have added it. So instead of me having to go and click list to-dos and have that to-do item come over here, I should somehow find a way to show the user that yes, your button click was registered and something happened with it. So one thing I can do is I can clear the text box. So to-do text box, oops, E tab. All right, there we go. That value is equal to nothing. All right, so I'll show you that just does this: to do text box dot value equals nothing. Right, so that just clears up that text box because, and if I wanted to change it to ABC, I could do that, by the way. I can just change that up, that's fine. So just after I've taken what's inside of that to-do text box and put it into a variable, and then taken that variable and assigned it to the end of my array, then I clear the text box to say, yes, I've got it, it's in my list. One more thing we can do though, I'm going to reload, and I'm going to list my to-dos, and I can go test, and I go add. Oh, it didn't work because I didn't save yet, so I'm going to try that again. I Control S to save, and I reload my page. I go test, oops, test, and I go add. So it's cleared that out of my box now, which is great. So I list the to-dos, but I feel like a to-do list should kind of update as you do these things. So what I also want to do is I want to take our list to-dos function that we're calling from a button, and I want to also call it from inside of my add to-do as soon as I'm finished adding the to-do to the list. So when I'm calling the function, I put in the name of the function and I follow it with brackets because the brackets say that we're naming the function instead of trying to use it as a value. Or sorry, that we're invoking the function instead of trying to use it as a value. We'll talk about using functions as values at a later date. You'll find it pretty cool, in fact. Okay, so now, all right, I go list to-dos, I've got that. And when I add something to the list, I click add and it automatically runs that there. Now when I mark complete though, I have to list it manually. So I'm going to go down to mark complete and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put in that list to-dos call at the end of mark complete. Let's reload, test, add, test, mark complete, and you can see it's automatically redoing this list for me. Take out trash. All right, mark complete, done, right? I can't clear done yet. I can't sort by done yet, but list to-dos is happening already automatically. But if I reload this page, you'll notice that everything kind of clears up again, right? What I want to do is start with whatever might already be in my list that's been staying there for a while. So outside of all of my functions in the global scope, at the very beginning, I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to call list to-dos. All right, so I've defined all my functions, and we know that definitions aren't actually running the code until we call the functions. They're just setting up code for us to run later on. So I've defined all these functions, and now I'm just at the very end of my script, I'm calling the list to-dos function to get us initialized. Now when I refresh the page, anything that's already in my list is right there waiting for us. Okay. Now I can add, I hit test, I can mark it complete, and so it feels more like a live list. All right. Yes, I realize that we wouldn't normally type in the mark complete thing, but we haven't got to working with checkboxes yet, so that's just the way we have to do it. All right, so the next thing we want to do, we've got this button working, and this button working. However, the mark complete button, if I go do laundry, right, and I click mark complete, it doesn't want to work. Why is that? Well, first things first, we are checking do laundry with a lowercase d and a lowercase o and so on. Everything else is in lowercase in this version of it, but we can't always predict that it's exactly the right size. So let's just, even though it is a little bit of a hack, let's check if our to-do list index is equal to that by using a way of comparing the same case to the same case. All strings have a method on them called toLowerCase. Okay? So let's compare the lowercase version of that to the lowercase version of that, and then it becomes case insensitive. So I'm checking my to-do list index, meaning items in my to-do list. So it might be 0, might be 1, might be 2. Even as the list grows, it keeps going like that. And then my done to-do is the text that I'm grabbing from my complete text box there. Okay, and I'm checking that to lowercase, all right? Let me show you what that looks like. If I put in do laundry all in uppercase here, and I type in done, oh, it's not done, it's complete text box, dot value, all right? I get do laundry all in uppercase. But if I take the dot value and I go to lowercase, and lowercase, to lowercase is a method, it's not a property, so we have to call it, we have to invoke it. But you see it gets all in lowercase now, right? Now let's have a look at our to-do list right there. And let's grab item, I think that was 1 there. All right, so you see it's do laundry. And if I do dot to lowercase, because it's a string, it automatically turns it to lowercase there, okay? So what we end up doing is comparing what we typed in a to lowercase fashion to what's in the array in a to lowercase fashion. So it becomes case insensitive regardless of whether we've used all uppercase, all lowercase, or what in either case. So, too many times using the word case. Let's do that. We've done this already in the to lowercase here, and we put that all on one line. You could put that on multiple lines if you find that a little bit easier to read. I personally do not, but I know there are other people who do that. And then when we're done, we're also going to, we almost kind of forgot to do this, is we're going to take this complete text box and we're going to set the value to nothing so we can also give that user feedback that something was done. I got to save it. By the way, in Sublime, you'll notice that there's a little dot on your tab instead of an X when you have a file that needs some saving. Very, very simple visual cue, but you might miss it, right? Okay, so I'm going to reload. You see that we've got take out trash and do laundry. And if I type in do laundry, I go mark complete, and I've got the correct thing, and I go take out trash. And I mark that one complete, everything's good. All right, there's more we could do. There's all kinds of things we could account for, but let's move on to doing a clear done. So anything that has a true value, anything that has a true value in the to-do done list, I want to automatically clear it out of my list. As it's done. So, you know, we have a to-do list. As we clear things off, we end up with a shorter to-do list, and that's the plan here. So, clear done, it's kind of neat the way we're going to do this, all right? We could go through all the trouble of trying to get a piece, you know, the beginning piece of the array plus the ending piece of the array, but leave out the part in the middle. We could use an array splice method. Now, if you look up array splice, it is a method. It does do things, but it's considered bad programming practice, and we'll discuss that later on about why it is. But the easiest way is to loop through our original array, finding the elements that are not done yet and add it to a new array, and then give back that array, like reassign the old array with the new array that no longer has the completed elements in it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's use a while loop this time, just because we haven't had a chance to use a while loop in this project yet, and I'd really like to. So we're going to start by creating an array. We're going to say var new array. Let's call it new array. Make sure you don't put it in two different words. New by itself is actually a JavaScript keyword, and it will probably break your code. You don't want that. So we're going to say new array equals, and we'll use an array literal to assign a brand new array to it. It's empty. We could also have done new array. Both ways work. I just find that the array literal syntax is a little cleaner. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're not going to loop through the new array. We're going to be looping through for, actually, no, not a for loop. We were going to do a while loop, so we'll initialize. Who taught me how to English, right? All right, so it's while. All right, our while loop, this is where the test occurs. Inside of these brackets, right here in a while loop is where we do the second step of a good loop, and we test, is I less than, and what does it have to be less than? Well, we're looping through the to-do list array or the to-do done array, whichever one we choose. Both of them will work in this case because they're parallel arrays. But I'm going to use to-do, actually let's use to-do done. All right, let's do that. And we're going to check its length. All arrays have a length property that tell you how many items are in it. Okay, so to-do done is an array. Just going right back up here. It's an array, and its length right now is 2, unless we put something else in there. All right, so for now we have 2 false values in there, but just like what we've done on the screen here, we've updated them with take out trash and do laundry both being done, so they'll have a true value in there, and I'll prove that to do done. If I output that, you can see I've got 2 trues instead of 2 falses now, but if I refresh, then I put out the same thing. I've got 2 falses to start, and if I mark off, let's put take out trash again. Mark that complete, and if I do a to-do done, you can see the first one gets to become true. That's based on our previous code. So we're going to go through our loop, and at the final step, the last step here, we have to increase or change our control variable. So we're going to call this a control variable. All right, so we've initialized our control variable. We test our control variable, and we change, typically increment, control variable. Now, this change thing, typically it should happen right at the end of a loop. There are times when you wouldn't, but let's just say for now that while you're learning, this is the best place for it. Okay, so what we do inside of this loop is we check whether our to-do done at the current index, which is what I is because it's increasing by 1 every time. It starts at 0, so it's going to check the first element. We've done lots and lots of loops, and I know it's probably a little confusing and a little overwhelming for some people at first. So you've just got to go through it over and over and over again, and eventually it will make more and more sense. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't be taught. You'd just know it, right? So you just got to get the practice in there. Okay, so we're checking whether that is something or other. So we're going to do an if here. And our if is this element currently true? Okay, because if it's true, we're done. And actually, we should probably be checking for false. This is the easier way, all right? And if it's done, if it's false, meaning if it hasn't been done yet, we want to keep it in the list, all right? So our new array, we're going to find the last element of that array, all right? Now, our new array starts off with a length of 0 because there's no elements in it. But if we want to add a new element to the array, we have to put it at index 0, which is the first element, which is why we can use the length of 0 as our indexer to put a new element at the end of the array. So I can say our new array dot length is to do done. No, sorry, to do list, and that is at I. Okay, so and why did I put to do text box? That should be to do done. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I don't know how I got to do text box. That was a complete accident there. So it should have been to do done, which is our list of our true and false values, as I was talking about over here. So if that confused you, I apologize. Hopefully you've caught up here. Okay, now we've got our new array. This is our new list, really. Let's rename that to a new list. I'm going to do that. Right click. No, okay. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to double click on all instances of new array, and I'm going to call it new list. Okay, and we're going to keep a second array here, and we're going to call it var new done. So that's going to be our done array, whether it's true or false, right? All of them are going to be false, but we need to keep our parallel arrays going to make it really easy here. It's kind of like magic, right? So our new done at the same area, done dot length, is equal to, be careful to make sure that you use the same array name for the length that you are trying to insert into, because when we add one onto new list, the length increases, and therefore we get out of parallelism with the others. So just got to make sure we're doing it right. And here we're just going to put false because we know it's not done. Right? It already is false. We're not going to go through all the trouble of trying to index something else. All right. So when we're finished, we should have a new list. And I'll console.log that of to do done. Actually, you know what? No, we'll just use the list function. So don't worry about that. But our to do list is now going to be our new list, and our to do done is going to be our new done. Okay. So we've created 2 new arrays, but we've only filled it when it had when there was a false value in the original list, and we've put it into the 2 new arrays, and yeah. There it goes. We've taken those 2 new arrays and copied them into our old arrays, replacing the old ones. So when I save this, all right, I've saved, no more dot, I refresh, all right, If I go clear done right now, nothing happens. Remember, it's clear done we're trying to run. But if I mark take out trash as complete, I go clear done. You know what the thing is? Aha, I forgot to call that list function. So I'm going to do play, and I'm going to close, and I'm going to list to-dos, and you can see it has been cleared. I just forgot to run my list to-dos portion of the function. I'm going to go back to my console. Get this window into the right size again. All right, so what I should have done here is also made sure that I called that list to-dos function. See the importance of user feedback there. I'm going to reload. I'm going to mark do laundry as complete this time. All right, and when I clear done, you see do laundry goes. I add test, test 2, test 3, add. Now here's a weird thing, all right? We didn't actually take care of empty text, so I'll leave that one up to you. See if you can make sure that we don't add something if it's an empty string. See, because this is what happens. And those are no good, right? But if I mark them as complete, clear, mark, clear, mark, clear, all good, right? Test 3 maybe, mark complete, mark take out trash as complete. Okay, and as you can imagine, take out trash, test 3 should go, so we should only be left with test 1 and test 2 if we do this right. I'm going to clear it, and we're good, right? So, 2 new arrays to hold only unfinished information. Unfinished to-do information, right? We're initializing the control variable to count through the array. So this is our, we call it control variable, we can call it a counter variable. All right. And we usually use I because I refers to the index of an array. When we test our control variable, we change or increment our control variable. So all we're doing here is our 3 steps of the array. All right. And then we're doing a quick conditional in here that says, if it's not done, we'll add some information to the new list, which is going to replace our old list with the new list. All right. Actually, it's 2 lists, so let's call them that. All right. And technically, they're arrays, but you know, arrays and lists. Arrays are the official term, but they're not too far off from the same thing. All right, and then when we're finished replacing the list, this was the step that I almost forgot, thought we broke it, but we didn't, was refresh our list. Or I guess re-render. Gotta love those system crashes. I had to restart my machine. Luckily, I've got an SSD in here, and Windows is loaded up in about 10 seconds flat whenever I have it crash. But I think it's about time for me to get a change in my video card and power supply because this should not be happening as frequently as it does. Anyhow, let's continue on with our quick sort. So when I click sort, what I want to happen is if do laundry here is finished, I want do laundry to move to the top and take out trash to the bottom. Anything else, for example, if I had test and test 2, all right, and test 2 was done. Let me make sure I spell that right. Mark complete, okay. Then do laundry and test 2 would move up the list and take out trash and test would move down the list because we want to just have everything we've done at the top of our list so that we can just focus on what we need to do. Perhaps we need to keep a history of what's done instead of just clearing it off. See, because we could sort, clear, done, right? All right, so that's what it's going to end up doing. I've already tested the code once. But now it doesn't do that anymore. Take out trash. At least I don't think it does. Mark complete. Sort by done. Okay. Leaving that, let's move on to how to do this. We're going to use for loops this time because they're just a little tidier. They fit onto one line, so we don't have as many lines, as many variables to mess around with. So let's just go loop through list. Then we're going to loop again, and we're going to find incomplete to-dos and put them at the bottom of the new list. And really, basically, because our list is empty to begin with, the top of the list is wherever the next array element is at the beginning, and then when we filled in all the finished elements, we're going to fill in the unfinished elements, and we're off to the races. Okay, so we do the initialize step first, so we set a counter variable to 0 typically. Then we do our test, and our test is almost always against the length of an array or some other external property. In this case, we're going to be going to our to-do list dot length, and we're going to increment it by 1 every time we finish a loop. So just to review, before the loop starts, this runs, and then every time at the beginning of each iteration of the loop, this runs, and then at the end of a loop, after we finish this code block, it comes back and it runs this before retesting and deciding whether to do another iteration of the loop. We are looping through the to-do list one at a time, and we're actually going to check the to-do done, but since we're dealing with parallel arrays, it's really easy to tell one thing from the other. So we're going to do an if statement here, and we're going to check to-do done I, all right, and we're going to see whether it is equal to true. So anything that's done is our finished items, and we want that to go at the top of our list, so we're going to add them to our new list, and new list.length, because if we use that pattern, we know we're accessing a new element at the end of an array every single time. Then we're going to say it's equal to, so we're going to assign a new item to it, and that's going to be our to-do list at the current index, because we don't care whether we're at the end or not of the to-do list, because we're still going one at a time through the to-do list, and we want to add it to a different array at the end. Okay, so the new list is not subject to the indexing. It's kind of separate from what we're looping through. We're looping through the to-do list and taking that and putting it onto the new list. While we're at it, we have to do a second instance of this. We go new done.length, all right, and we say it's equal to do done at the same index, because we're dealing with parallel arrays. And that's done. That's it. That's all you have to do for this part. So we've looped through the original arrays finding completed to-dos. Now we want to find incomplete to-dos. And for that, I'm just going to copy, go down here, and I'm going to paste, and I'll adjust, add a tab there just so we have the proper indentation. And instead of checking for true values, I'm going to check for false values, and I'm still going to add the false values to the end of the array. So in the beginning with an empty array, the end of the array is the beginning of the array. So that's why we can put all of our finished stuff first and then our not so finished stuff here afterwards. Okay, so we've created our two new lists, but those don't actually affect our outside list permanently. So let's go and we will reassign our original arrays to use the new sorted lists. Okay, and so we're going to go to do done equals new done, and to do list equals new list, and that's good. And then we want to re-render our to-do list to the text box. Okay, and to do that, all we have to do is call list to-dos, our fun function from above. And I hit save. I'll reload and make sure my list is still working, test is working, console's not giving me any errors so far. I mark test as complete, I sort by done, test ends up at the top. That's exactly what we wanted. Fantastic. We'll hit clear done, and everything is all cleared up. Now we can add a whole load of things to our list. For example, we need to make dinner, and we need to eat dinner. Okay, and then we need to code, because we need to code lots if we want to become good developers. And then we need to test our code, because testing is a good thing to do. And then we want to spend a little bit of time playing games, so we'll PvP, and we'll realize we're terrible, so we'll get good. And then we will get some sleep and start again. So let's mark off a few of these things as done. Take out trash. That was pretty important because the place was starting to smell. And we'll make some dinner. We'll do the laundry when we have some time. I don't think that's going to get done today. Maybe that's going to stay on the to-do list until tomorrow. Of course, we got to eat. And no day is complete without a little bit of coding, right? Testing our code, just like the typical bad developer, I'm going to leave that until another day. And I'm going to find some time to go and play some games, PvP. And I don't need to get good because I'm already good, but I'm going to mark that as complete anyway. And that's good. And as usual, I haven't slept yet, so I'm not going to mark that as complete. So let's sort this by done. And now it's really easy to see that the only things I have left to do is do laundry, test my code, and get some sleep. So yeah, I'm off to do laundry. See you tomorrow.